Hello, welcome back. Hope you're having a great day. We're going to continue and actually start the first little section, the need to belong. Have you ever thought of a time when you yourself needed to belong? You can think back to like middle school, maybe elementary, and we all want to belong. We want to be in part of a group of friends, right? So, the very first episode of Stranger Things is entitled The Vanishing of Will Byers. It's a perfect beginning. The cryptic circumstances of Will's abduction reveal just enough to let us know that something otherworldly is its cause. We'll learn that Will is here but not here, trapped in a parallel universe, an unnatural world that is ultimately lethal to all who cross over into it. Three realizations flash through our minds and hearts in the wake of the tragic event: the pain of loss, the threat of death, and the impossibility of changing the situation. We'll consider all those disturbing intuitions in the ensuing chapters, but it is the first that will capture our attention here at the outset. So, I don't know about you, but when I first became a widow, the first little bit after Bob died, I experienced all of that. The pain of loss was so great. And the threat of death, and then it was impossible. I couldn't change that situation. So, just as important as Will's vanishing, we're immediately introduced to the tight-knit group of boys that will propel the series: Will Byers, Dustin Henderson, Mike Wheeler, and Lucas Sinclair. Will Byers, the fact that the party, as they referred to themselves, is playing Dungeons and Dragons in the opening scene, not only portends the Demogorgon, a dreadful, lethal enemy that, unknown to them, has entered their reality, but anticipates what we'll learn of their commitment to each other. So, in middle school, in the middle school terminology of the 80s, the four nerds, outcasts among their peers, they're united by the shared status of being uncool due to their mutual love for D&D, AV gadgetry, comic books, video games, and science fiction. Mike Heiser says, I could immediately identify with them. Reminded me of my Bob as well. So, familiar things. Heiser says, my own small cadre of friends formed our own club, complete with meetings, infrastructure planning, and, of course, hats. While I was into comic books and science fiction, my real obsession at their age was a statistics-based baseball board game called APBA. It was fantasy baseball before there was such a thing. True to form, I and my friends conducted 10 10-hour or more APBA marathons, just like the party's D&D session that opens the first session of the show. Truth be told, we spent almost 2 years replaying the 1973 baseball season. Why? Because we wanted to see how realistic the replay was. It was an experiment. Geeky kids do those sort of things. Fortunately, my party never lost a member, at least until we reached college age. But we had all suffered losses. My father left my mother when I was 5, and my brother 3. For years, I wondered if I had somehow contributed to the breakup, whether I had been a burden in some way. It was a misguided thought. But children don't exactly have the capacity to reason deeply about such complicated things as divorce. When my mom remarried, it was to an alcoholic. My best friend had a similar story, though that divorce had a more clear cut rationale. His dad couldn't stand being married to a Jesus freak. The divorce of my friend's parents left him and his three siblings, two of whom had cystic fibrosis, with insufficient support. To say they struggled would be a dramatic understatement. But it was in their home that I first heard the gospel, and it was through the influence of that friend that I came to believe its message as a teenager. With one exception, each of my other middle school friends also came from broken homes, one of which was also plagued by alcoholism. We each coped differently with what would now be clinically termed detachment disorder, defined by one source as an inability to connect with others on an emotional level, as well as a means of coping with anxiety by avoiding certain situations that trigger it. Our homes were a mess, but we had each other. We were a unit, a party. We'll stop there in the book for right now, but think back to your own selves in middle school. Particularly if, well, yeah. And, in my era, that was long before home educating or really not a lot of private school. I'm from a small community, and so it was pretty normal. Everybody went to the same school. You just went, and you wanted to because of your friends. I mean, of course, there's those there that were there for education as well. But I have to say, my own time frame, it was my friends that I loved about school. And I mean, I did have some really good teachers along the way, don't get me wrong, but my primary reason for wanting was friends. And I think back to my own time in middle school, and just a few years ago, I had a small gathering at my house with a couple of friends from, well, one I've been friends with since elementary school, and the other since middle school when I first met her. And we, along with some other girls, really formed a group that carried us all through high school, really. And still to this day, we're in touch some. Well, anyway, a few years back, it was after Bob died. I had a couple friends over to my house, and one of the friends had gone through a very serious situation when we were in middle school, and she had been diagnosed with leukemia, and had lost her hair through the treatments, went through radiation, and when she came back to school, she was kind of nervous. And she shared that the reason that she loved our group of friends was because we were so accepting. And I thought that was very profound to have that knowledge all those years later. Anyway, yeah. So those really tight friendships that were formed, and I think back to my own circle at that time. There were some of us whose parents were going through a divorce. There were some of us who just had other problems going on otherwise. And so you form a very tight bond together. And that is what we're going to see. And that's important. So, what about you? Are you still in contact with some of your friends from your earliest formative years where you were, going to movies together, riding bikes together, doing experiments together, spending lazy summers? It wasn't necessarily lazy, I shouldn't say that, but some of it was. I remember sleeping late, staying up late. A bunch of us would usually hang out at the pool. We would go bike riding. Um, but summer was long. And it's just interesting. I don't know. So I'd love to hear from you. Are you still connected? Did you have a group like that, like what I'm describing, or what is described with Will Byers, or the group, the party in Stranger Things? So, yeah, keep reading, keep thinking, and making the connections. That's my gift for you today.